Hey everybody, welcome back. This is week 2 of a series called Foreigners and Exiles. How do we live in a land that is not our own? How we can live in the world but not of the world. Just a quick recap. Last week we looked at Daniel chapter 1 and we saw how Daniel had a dilemma whether to obey the authority or how to obey God's authority, and how he was able to be respectful of the authority of the land while still honoring God, and how we should be respectful of the authority that God put over us. Today we're going to look at Daniel chapter 2, and we're going to start with verse 1 through 4. So let's start by reading. In the second year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. His mind was troubled, and he could not sleep. So the king summoned the magicians and enchanters and sorcerers and astrologers to tell him what his dream meant. When they came in to stand before the king, he said to them, "I've had a dream, and it troubles me, and I want to know what it means." Then the astrologers answered the king, "May the king live forever! Tell your servants the dream, and we will interpret it." Okay, so this is how it worked. The magicians would listen to the dream and the details of the dream. Then they would open up their little dream book and, find the symbols that were in the dream. And they would look it up in their book and be like, this means this or that means that. For example, like cows that would mean prosperity, or if there was a fire in the dream, they'd look it up and like, oh, fire means destruction. Or if there was corn, they'd look it up and be like, oh, you should have eaten more before bed, or I don't know, something like that. I'm just making that stuff up. But Nebuchadnezzar, he wanted to know not only what his dream was, but he wanted to know what it meant. So the magicians were like, "Tell us the dream and we'll look it up and we'll tell you what it means." So this is verse 5. Let's see what Nebuchadnezzar's response was. The king replied to the astrologers, "This is what I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me what my dream was and interpret it, I will have you cut into pieces and your house turned into a pile of rubble." This dude crazy. He's like, "I will cut you into pieces, burn your house, and then turn it to rubble." Say what? Like, you're gonna do what to us? Not only do you want us to tell you what the dream means, but you want us to tell you the dream? Or you're gonna tear our limbs off and destroy our house? That's not how it works, king! Like, the magicians are like, what? We can't do that! Verse 6. But if you tell me the dream and explain it, you will receive from me gifts and rewards and great honor. So tell me the dream and interpret it for me. Once more they replied, "Let the king tell his servant the dream so we may interpret it." They're like, this is not how it works. You tell us what the dream is, we look it up, and then we tell you what it means. This other, stuff, that's not a part of the deal. Like, we can't do that. But, King Nebuchadnezzar is like, "Come on, tell me what the dream was." But they're like, we like the idea of having great rewards, and we like gifts and honor, but I don't want my arms ripped off. This is a dilemma. So, let's continue. Verse 8. Then the king answered, "I am certain that you are trying to gain time, because you realize that this is what I want, and I have firmly decided. If you do not tell me the dream, there is only one penalty for you. You've conspired to tell me misleading and wicked things, hoping the situation will change. So then tell me the dream, and I will know that you can interpret it." This dude is paranoid. Verse 10. The astrologers answered the king, "There is no one on earth who can do what you are asking, king. No king, however, no king, however, great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or astrologer. What the king asks is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except for God, the gods, and they don't live among humans." So, like, the magicians are saying, "We can't do this. It can't be done. Only the gods can tell you." And they don't talk to us. Like, you know why? You know why their gods don't talk to them? They were made of wood and stone. Like, they're just objects that they were like, "Oh, you mighty eraser, how we worship you." Like, this eraser can't talk to me. No, because it's an eraser. Their gods were the same thing. Their gods couldn't tell them anything because they were just wood and stone. But like, only God, the gods can tell you this, and they don't talk to us. So how can we tell you this? They were like panicking because they knew that if they couldn't do it, that Nebuchadnezzar was going to get all psycho on them and start ripping their arms off and stuff. So let's continue verse 12 to 14. This made the king so angry and furious that he ordered the execution of all the wise men in Babylon. So a decree was issued to put the wise men to death, and men were sent to look for Daniel and his friends to put them to death. The king go cray-cray. Like, he's freaking out. He's going all psycho, and he's ordering all the wise men to be killed. This dude is nuts! Like, what is he doing? He's like, kill all the wise men because they can't tell me what my dream is. Like, the dude is crazy. Okay, verse 14. When this dude's name that I can't pronounce, Orich, something like that, the commander of the king's guard, had gone out to put to death the wise men of Babylon, Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact. He asked the king's officer, "Why did the king issue such a harsh decree?" Yeah, harsh, that's putting it lightly. Okay, let's continue. Orich then explained the matter to Daniel. At this, Daniel went to the king and asked for time so that he might interpret the dream for him. So Daniel, like, he finds out what's going on. He's like, why is everybody being murdered? Why are you ripping their arms off? Why are you setting their houses on fire? Like, what's going on? So they tell Daniel what's going on, and Daniel's like, heck no. Let me see the king right now. This ain't gonna happen. Daniel's like, no, not gonna happen. So he asked to buy some time so that he could interpret the dream. Let's continue. Verse 17. Then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matters to his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, other known as Rak, Shak, and Benny. He urged them to plead for mercy from God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a visit. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven. So first of all, Daniel says, I want to go see the king. This is not going to happen. He's like, I'll interpret the dream. But there was one little problem. He didn't know what the dream was or what it meant. Like, this dude, Daniel, is like putting himself on the limb. He's like, I'll interpret the dream. But he didn't know what the dream was. So he prayed, God, could you please tell me what the dream is and what it means? Because if you don't, I'm going to have my arms ripped off. And I like my arms. And please don't let me be hurt. Because I like my arms where they are and not on the ground. Please. Daniel was like, please tell me, God, because I want to save all these people through your empowerment, God. So Daniel not only prayed to God, but he pleaded with all of his friends to pray to God as well. All right. Not only did he pray with his close friends, but he urged his friends, pray urgently with me. He wanted that support. So let's continue, verse 24. Then Daniel went to Arioch, or whatever this dude's name is, whom the king had appointed to execute the wise men of Babylon, and said, so apparently Arioch's, title was arm ripper offer. I don't know. So, and he said to him, do not execute the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king, and I will interpret the dream for him. Arioch took Daniel to the king at once and said, I have found a man from the exile of Judah who can tell the king what the dream means. Okay, first of all, Arioch, you're such a little, suck up. You didn't find anybody. Daniel went to you. Okay, that's number one. Secondly, Arioch, apparently you weren't listening to the king. You weren't supposed to find someone who could interpret the dream. The king's made it pretty clear that you gotta know what the dream is first and then interpret it. So Arioch, you don't listen. You're not listening to the king. Listen, Arioch, listen. Yeah, there's that. Okay, let's continue. Verse 26. The king asked Daniel, also called Belshazzar, because remember, they changed his name. Are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream and interpret it? And so Daniel replies, verse 27. Daniel replied, no wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mysteries that he have asked. So, Daniel, if you can't do this, then why did you go to the king who is trying to rip everybody's arms off? That doesn't sound like a smart idea. Okay, let's see what else he says. He continues, verse 28. But's good. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries and has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the days to come. Your dream and your visions that pass through your mind as you are lying in bed are these. So Daniel was like, I can't tell you anything, but God can tell you. So all of this is just to set up for what God's going to reveal through Daniel about the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had. But before we go there, take a second to think about how far Daniel stuck his neck out to not without knowing anything about the dream. All he knew was that if he didn't do something, Nebuchadnezzar was going to keep going cray-cray, ripping people's arms off, and people's houses burning down and being turned to rubble, and, just bad stuff was going to happen if he didn't step in. That was bold faith. He knew that if God didn't intervene for him, it was going to be bad. It was going to be bad for Daniel. Okay. All of that just to set up what the dream was. All right, let's read verse 31 to 35. This might be a little bit of a long section, so bear with me. Your Majesty looked, and there before you stood a large statue, an enormous, dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. The head of the statue was made of pure gold. Ooh, pretty. In its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze. Okay, getting less pretty. Its legs of iron, its feet partially of iron and partially out of baked clay. While you were watching, a rock was cut out, but not by human hands. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and smashed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all broken into pieces and became like chaff on a threshing floor of the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace. But the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth. Wow, that was a weird dream. Nebuchadnezzar must have been eating beans, for dinner before going to bed. He had a little gas or something. Now, God gave him this dream. It's this freaky statue man thing made of gold and silver and bronze and iron and clay. Then this rock was carved out of the mountain and it smashed the statue. Okay, what in the world does this mean? Alright, let's look at verse 36 to 43. This was the dream, and now we will interpret it to the king. Your Majesty, you are the King of Kings. The God of heaven has given you domain and power and might and glory. It's like God, he's given you all these things. In your hands, he has placed all mankind and the beasts of the field and the birds of the air. Wherever they live, he has made them, you rule over them all. You are the head of gold. Well, that's good because, the feet of clay and iron, not so pretty. So it says, you are the head of gold. After you, another kingdom will arise. It's inferior to yours. Next, a third kingdom, one of bronze. You will roll over the whole earth. Finally, there will be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, for iron breaks and smashes everything. And as iron breaks things to pieces, so it will crush and break all others. Just as you saw that the feet and the toes were partially baked clay and partially of iron, so this will be a divided kingdom. Yet it will have some strength of iron in it, even as you saw the iron mixed with clay. As the toes were partly iron and partly clay, so this kingdom will be partly strong and partly brittle. And just as you saw the iron mixed with baked clay, so the people will be a mix and will not remain united any more than iron mixed with clay. That was a lot of iron mixed with clay. Okay. So it says your kingdom is gonna end. That's probably not something Nebuchadnezzar wanted to hear. It says your kingdom, as great as it is, you're the gold head, it's coming to an end. It's strong now, but soon you're going to get beat down. Other nations will come and it's going to take your place. Yeah, I don't think Nebuchadnezzar would really want to hear that. But Daniel said he was going to interpret the dream. So let's continue, verse 44 and 45. In the time of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will crush all other kingdoms and bring them to an end. But it will itself endure forever. This is the meaning of the vision of the rock cut out of the mountain, but not by human hands, a rock that broke the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold to pieces. This is saying there will be one nation after another that is big and they will think that they're invincible. But God is setting up a kingdom that is greater than all these, and it will never end. Have you ever heard about a nation or a kingdom that will never end? Where have I heard that before? I remember. Let's look at Matthew chapter 21, verses 42 to 44. I think this might sound familiar. It says, Jesus said to them, have you never read in the scriptures, the stone the builder rejected has become the cornerstone? The Lord has done this, and this is marvelous in our eyes. Therefore, I tell you that the kingdom of God will be taken away from you and given to people who produce its fruit. Anyone who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces. Anyone whom it falls will be crushed. Sounds pretty familiar, right? So, we all make our own kingdoms. We all have our own things that we hold dear, that we think that we can hold on to, we can roll. But God says, all those kingdoms, they're going to be crushed. The question is, Will we be blindsided by the crush? Like, will we be devastated when our kingdom is crushed? Or will we invite God to crush our kingdom and accept his kingdom to take its place? Will we be destroyed and be like, and not have our kingdom? We don't expect our kingdom to be crushed, or will we invite our kingdom to be crushed so that God can take over? That's the question. When I was in high school, I was a volleyball player. I absolutely loved volleyball. Volleyball was like my thing, and I didn't have a whole lot of things in my life. And I had made volleyball my identity. Well, my senior year of high school, in the middle of my season, I devastatedly destroyed my ankle. Got a high ankle sprain, and I developed shin splints. And all of a sudden, there goes volleyball. I couldn't play anymore. My kingdom was crushed. But in that crushing, God revealed his kingdom to me and what he had in store for me. Remember that the Babylonian gods couldn't talk to them or really do anything because they were just sticks and stones and stuff? Our gods, they're like the gods that we set up in our lives, in our own kingdom, they're like that. They're nothing. But the God of heaven, he's not like that. Jesus, he saw how our kingdoms were suffering. He saw how our kingdoms didn't work. They didn't function. And he knew that they needed to be destroyed so that his kingdom could come and take over. So Jesus, he died on the cross to take the punishment for our sins so that he could set up his kingdom in our lives. It's up to us to decide, are we going to allow God's kingdom to take over our kingdom? Or are we going to allow our kingdom to reign for a while, but eventually it's going to be crushed and we'll be left devastated? You see, God, he can't be around sin. He despises sin, but he loves people. Our kingdom is full of sin. And the reason it's full of sin is because we made ourselves kings and queens of our own kingdom. And face it, we are full of sin. When our kingdom fails, it will crush the king and queen, which is us. And it devastates us. God doesn't want to destroy us or make us slaves. The Bible says that he destroys our kingdom so that he can rebuild it his way. And then he does something really cool. Instead of making us slaves, he makes us co-heirs with Jesus. Basically, he makes us princes and princesses of his kingdom. So we're no longer king or queens in our own pathetic little kingdoms. We are princes and princesses in God's mighty kingdom. We are subject to the king, which is God, but he gives us value. And it's important value because it's not a value that we place on ourselves. It's the value that God places on us. Nebuchadnezzar's response when he heard the dream and the interpretation of the dream was that he fell down on his face and he honored God. This is in verse 46. He made Daniel a high position and lavished many gifts on him. And Daniel requested that Nebuchadnezzar make Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego administrators over the province of Babylon as well. So God blessed Daniel's faith because Daniel, he stuck his neck out in a really real way, but God honored that. When Nebuchadnezzar was when Nebuchadnezzar was killing all the officials, I'm sure Daniel's natural reaction was to hide and run away, basically go nowhere near the king. But Daniel had surrendered his kingdom to God's kingdom, and he could make himself known in Babylon. He wanted to make God known to the Babylonian people. I don't know where you are right now. Maybe you are having fun being your own king or queen, and you don't want to let go of control. I hope and I pray that you figure out before it's too late that there's so much better that God has for you. He wants his kingdom to reign in your life so that you don't get crushed. Maybe you have already had your kingdom or your lives fall apart. You were the king or queen of your own life, but something came and it crushed you. I just pray that you would allow God to clean up and rebuild after you've been crushed, and rebuild it your kingdom God's way, and allow Him to place value on your life. Maybe things are going well, but you hear God calling you to surrender your kingdom before it gets devastated. I urge you, listen to God's call. He's not doing it out of hate or greed or because he doesn't want you to have a good time. He does it because He loves you and He wants the very best for you, and He doesn't want you to be destroyed or crushed. Wherever you are, if you have never asked Jesus to be king of your life, I want you to lay down your kingdom so that Jesus can rebuild you. I invite you to, if you've never accepted Jesus to be king of your life, talk to me. Talk to one of the other youth sponsors. Talk to one of your friends here. Ask them, what does it mean to have Jesus be king of my life? And how can He rebuild me whenever I've just let things fall apart? So we're going to have some time of discussion, but I urge you, if you've never had this discussion before, talk to someone to find out about how you can have a relationship with God. Have a great discussion. I'll talk to you later.